Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everyone, and thanks again for joining us here at KAKM for Friday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting tonight's show. Up first on the warning, watch, and advisory map, there are dense smoke advisories out for the Koyukuk Valley and also for the middle Yukon Valley here, as well as the central interior. That's for smoke near the fires to reduce visibilities to a mile or less at times for tonight and through tomorrow morning. These advisories are out for the dense smoke until noon tomorrow, in which time the smoke is expected to thin out during the afternoon. And moving on to the satellite imagery, we had low pressure here west of the Queen Charlotte Islands. That spun a band of showers, rain, and some scattered thunderstorms into the southern panhandle during the day today. Showers became more scattered and isolated, and the clearing more widespread as you headed north there along the southeast coast, allowing temperatures to rise up to near 70 in some locations there. A lot of sunshine along the North Gulf Coast today, south central Alaska, clear skies over Prince William Sound, and up to the northwest. Frontal system slow moving there, just edging its way eastward, brought rain to the central Arctic coast there, southwest and across Kotzebue Sound to the northern Seward Peninsula, and just a weak trailing edge coming back across the St. Lawrence Island area for some fog and drizzle there. Rainfall amounts range from about 0.2 of an inch at Barrow and Kotzebue to about 1/3 of an inch at Noatak there, with much lighter amounts back across the peninsula into St. Lawrence Island. And then another system here bringing some light rain to the Pribilof Islands and Alaska Peninsula. That's bringing some high clouds in across Bristol Bay and the Kuskokwim Valley during the Kuskokwim Delta during the afternoon today, and another system with some more rain over the central Aleutians. Very light rainfall amounts with this system, just a few hundredths of an inch falling at St. Paul in Alaska and Cold Bay today, but clear skies there, Kodiak Island, just starting to get the cirrus there on the southwest side of the island here at 3 p.m., which is the time of the last picture here. And again, a lot of sunshine here through south central Alaska, temperatures rising into the 60s to upper 70s here across the Madanuska Valley, northern Cook Inlet areas, with 70s into the Kuskokwim Valley, and temperatures near 70 all the way up to the eastern Arctic coast there. They had a lot of clear skies up in that area ahead of this incoming front. That turns the wind southwest. More offshore flow allowed temperatures to rise on the eastern side. Quite a contrast up there, just the 40s back in the rainy area around Barrow. But on the chart today, you can see there were some low clouds here up over northeast Bristol Bay, but some good sunshine around Togiak, northward across the Kuskokwim Valley, eastern deltas there, and then all the sunshine here over south central Alaska. Just a few clouds building up over the Alaska Range and the Chugach Mountains there, but just any showers are pretty isolated and widely scattered if they exist at all. Had some thunderstorms again break out this afternoon here over the southeast portions of the southeast coast, with some rain about 1/3 of an inch falling at Metlakatla. That was one of the heavier rainfall amounts. Again, to the north, much lighter amounts to nothing at all with some sunshine. Again, just some scattered showers, mostly north of the border there in south or in northwest Canada. But for tonight, we'll see that front continues to weaken. It'll bring mostly just clouds and a few showers to Bristol Bay. Any moisture staying west of Kodiak Island, probably just see an increase in the clouds there across the island later tonight, and some scattered showers up along the southwest coast. A weak low forms along this front, so a chance of rain on the eastern Arctic coast there. Chance of showers back to the west with that main low hanging off the coast there at 999 millibars. And the cold front trailing back across the Seward Peninsula, so probably be a band of rain moving across the Selawik and Kobuk Valley areas from the Central Brooks Range back across the Seward Peninsula. Chance of rain into Norton Sound. Still a risk of some moisture there around St. Lawrence Island with some low clouds and fog in the area there. And this next developing system, 999 millibar low there, lifts north of AKwx, with the front spreading more rain in later tonight into the Pribilof Islands. Definitely an increase in the wind and rain across the eastern Aleutians, spreading into the Alaska Peninsula areas. And then for tomorrow, we'll see that front pushes a good amount of rain, moisture into Bristol Bay there. So look for periods of rain the entire Alaska Peninsula up across Bristol Bay into the southern Kuskokwim Delta areas, and then back west that low near the Pribilof. So periods of rain and fog there, but winds will be on the light side, and then rain back out to the west there along that frontal boundary all the way out to Shimya. Back along the Aleutians, look for some partial clearing with west winds 15 to 25 miles per hour. Not much in the way of any shower activity through here. All the moisture will be at the main system up to the northeast over the southeast Bering and Bristol Bay. Should be a pretty good start to the day here for south central Alaska. Just partly to mostly sunny, increasing clouds in the afternoon with a risk of some isolated showers during the afternoon hours and into the evening. There's a chance of isolated thunderstorms are possible over the Talkeetna Mountains and maybe the western Alaska Range. More than likely just a few showers breaking out there in the afternoon. Could see some shower activity over the Wrangell Mountains in the eastern Alaska Range. Otherwise mostly sunny and mild again there for the Copper River Basin. Up through the interior areas there into the upper Yukon Valley, mostly sunny skies. Be partly sunny with a few isolated showers around the southeast coast. Most of the moisture this low pulling off to the southeast and shifting over into British Columbia, but there's still a risk of an isolated shower or two there for the southeast coast. And then this front again slow moving here, but that'll bring some rain into the Koyukuk Valley from the eastern Brooks Range area back to the southwest, and then a weak trailing edge into the Norton Sound area for a chance of rain, say around Unalakleet, but behind the front could break out there. Could see some sunshine around Nome and up into the Selawik Valley, but scattered showers back here over the western Arctic coast and North Slope areas. And then for Saturday, we'll see this low tracks eastward to just south of the Kenai Peninsula. This front comes a little bit further to the south, and the moisture with both of them combined, and there's a good chance of rain here across south central Alaska. In fact, just flat out rain is in the forecast for the Anchorage area. Looks like periods of rain and fog up along the North Gulf Coast as well, with east winds ahead of that front, gusting up to 25 knots there in the marine forecast. So small craft advisories there for the North Gulf Coast, and even some winds possibly up to 20 knots in Prince William Sound there from the east. Otherwise, the Alaska Peninsula, a few scattered showers, and a narrow band of light rain here trailing back from the Kuskokwim Valley. Will be rain probably most of the day Sunday around McGrath, back to Sleepmute, out across Bethel, periods of rain and fog with light rain, with some clearing back up over the Yukon Delta areas. Still looking showery there for the western Arctic coast and North Slope. A lot of clouds eastward. Periods of rain from the upper Yukon Valley where that low center is northward to the eastern Arctic coast. But for the southeast coast, partly to mostly sunny and dry there. Not all the shower activity now. Definitely into Canada. Higher pressure off the coast in advance of this front should make for a dry day with at least some sunshine in most areas there for the Panhandle. And looking at temperatures this afternoon down there, mostly in the upper 50s to upper 60s, 59. These are mid-afternoon temperatures, 59 there at Klawock, 61 at Annette. That same reading matched at Wrangell, 65 at Petersburg, Juneau 69, 67 over at Yakutat, and mid to upper 60s here, Prince William Sound. Valdez had 68, 73 in Gulkana, 74 at Palmer. That was at 4 p.m. But both Palmer and Anchorage had the state's high of 77 this afternoon, 72 up in the Susitna Valley, 70 degrees over at Northway, a little cooler at Delta Junction, and back to 70 at Fairbanks, about the same at Tanana. Farther to the north in the upper Yukon Valley, excuse me, 61 at Fort Yukon. That same temperature matched also at Anatuvik. And up along the Arctic coast, 40s there with the rain at Barrow, 43 degrees, but Dead Horse was up to 67 this afternoon, and then back down to 50 degrees at Wainwright, and 40s along the western Arctic coast. Lower 50s here across Kotzebue Sound, the Noatak Valley areas, southern Seward Peninsula, lower to mid 50s, Golovin at 54, Nome had 51. Tin City just 47. That temperature about the same there on St. Lawrence Island. And over the southwest interior, kind of a contrast here from 73 at McGrath to 64 at Sleepmute. 57 there at Bethel, lower 50s here along the southwest coast. And for the Bristol Bay area. Dillingham, even though they had a south wind today, still reached 68 degrees, but in the low cloud deck there, King Salmon just 57. Sandpoint up to 70 this afternoon with some downsloping winds off the peninsula. 53 though at Cold Bay, 61 at Unalaska, lower 50s for the Pribilofs and lower to mid 50s out over the Aleutians, but just 48 out at Shemya. And for the forecast lows for tonight, mid-30s for the central Arctic coast, otherwise in the 40s across the north slope into the Brooks Range, with mostly lower to mid-50s here through the central interior. 40s and 50s over the Copper River Basin, the eastern interior areas at 48, the forecast low at Eagle, with lower 50s for the southeast coast and lower to mid-50s for south central Alaska. Bristol Bay, lower 50s for the peninsula. Even the Aleutians staying above the 50-degree mark here until you get out to Shemya, with not much change from their high today. Same thing for St. Paul. And for the highs tomorrow, not much of an increase, just 50 degrees for the forecast high there. And Shemya, mid-50s here for the central Aleutians, upper 50s and lower 60s, the Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutian areas, but back into the 70s for the Copper River Basin. Looks like 65 to 70-ish here for northern Cook Inlet and the Susitna Valley tomorrow, again with the increase in the clouds, keeping temperatures down from what we saw today. And 60s for the central interior areas there. And then cooler back to the west and the cooler air behind that front lying right through this area. That's why the temperatures are contrasted from northwest to southeast, just mid to upper 40s back in the northwest. The Arctic coast barrel should reach 40 degrees and 60s to lower 70s here across the panhandle. Marginal VFR are mostly staying off the coast here, so it looks pretty good. VFR forecast tomorrow afternoon, Dixon entrance northward across all of the panhandle. Marginal VFR in the forecast, though, for Prince William Sound and areas working northward there, with marginal VFR up the west side of Cook Inlet on the eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range down to Kodiak Island, becoming marginal VFR there. IFR mostly staying on the southern side of the Alaska Peninsula, with a big swath of IFR here extending from the central Bering Sea up to the southwest coast. Narrow area of marginal conditions here along the eastern Norton Sound up in toward the Kobuk Valley areas, and then IFR central western Arctic coast still trending toward VFR for the east side, and lots of IFR out over the western Aleutians and the central Bering Sea. Passes Anatuvik, VFR becoming marginal VFR as that frontal system edges its way eastward into the area. That same forecast also good for Adigan as well. For the western Alaska Range, VFR for the passes, but the eastern entrances could be marginal at times there, with marginal VFR possible again on the eastern entrance for Rainy. Otherwise VFR through the pass and to the west. Windy though, VFR. Isabel, VFR, and Mentasta also VFR. Tanita, possible marginal conditions on the eastern entrance. Otherwise a good VFR day for that pass. Portage looks marginal. Chilkoot and White look to be VFR both tomorrow and probably Sunday as well. Freezing levels, you can see the colder air mass here up over the Chukchi Sea behind that slow-moving cold front through the interior, 2,000 feet there from about Point Lade down to the Bering Strait, and then milder conditions up to about 8,000 feet there on the Yukon Delta coast, just varying 8 to 10,000 feet over the eastern interior and the Panhandle, and the warmest air mass out here over the southern Bering Sea and the central Aleutians up to 12,000 feet. Icing threats with all that batch of moisture coming in from the west-southwest. Bristol Bay here up across the Kilbrook and Auckland mountain areas. Pretty good chance of some light isolated moderate rime icing mostly. Could be some isolated areas of mixed icing, but it'd be mostly of the rime variety here for the Alaska Peninsula. That extends back to the west of the Pribilof Islands and continues westward out to the western Aleutians. And then another batch for that front, mostly above 5,000 feet up here. Got to get above 10,000 feet for this area, but a little lower in the cold, lower freezing levels up here. Again, from the central Brooks Range area, north slope, trailing back into Norton Sound. Just a slight chance of some icing through this area. Otherwise, icing free everywhere else. And the winds aloft showing the upper trough here with the colder air coming into the northwest, southwest flow, but the whole pattern shifting slowly eastward and southward, so that'll allow that front to drop a little farther south on Sunday there. And then the southwest jet out through here tomorrow will be advancing east-northeastward, and that's going to push that moisture and that next system right up into south central Alaska for the rain on Sunday. 9,000-foot winds showing southwesterlies up to 35 knots across the eastern Aleutians. And this low bringing 25-knot winds there for the western Arctic coast. Otherwise, the interior mostly southwesterly or southerly, 10 to 15 knots, and quite light winds here, both at 9 and 3,000 feet across the Panhandle. And just light variable winds for the southeast coast at 3,000 feet with about the same pattern we saw at 9,000 feet here through the interior. Southwesterlies 10 to 15 knots, lighter over the Copper River Basin, a little brisker here in towards Kivalina and Point Hope in those areas, but not too strong at all. Here just southeast winds 10 to 15 knots there across the eastern Bering Sea. That low near the Pribilos for light variable winds there, but winds could kick up to 35 knots at 3,000 feet here across the eastern Aleutians and areas to the south. Lighter winds up to the north, 30-knot winds into the central Aleutians, and then lighter again back out to the west. Turbulence-wise, some light to isolated moderate chop from about Wainwright southward to Point Hope, maybe Kivalina, and then that below 5,000 feet in another area here for the western Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians on out to about Amchitka, maybe Kiska Island. Otherwise, pretty smooth. Turbulence-wise, Kodiak Island, much of interior Alaska, on down the Panhandle there to Dixon Entrance. And after hangar flying, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary O'Connor with the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. On behalf of Alaska Public Media, thank you for watching Hangar Flying. This evening, we are honored to have Mr. Patrick Thurston as our guest. Mr. Thurston has an interesting history in aviation. He was a pilot in the military and in civilian life, and he's flown all over the world. He's been involved with the startup of aviation companies, and he's worked in management for small and large aviation companies. Welcome to the show, Patrick.
Thank you.
You've got an interesting background and some great stories. Can you start by telling us how you got involved in aviation?
Well, it all began after I had finished high school, and the obligation to join the service was present for all of us in 1957. And I joined the Navy, and it happened that they invited me to attend flight school if I wanted to do that, and who would pass that up? So 18 months worth of training later, a long time by current standards, of course, we were anointed as full ensigns. We were walking about 3 inches off the ground. We were bulletproof, and we could do it all, and off we went for carrier duty. I did that for a couple of tours, finished the second tour out in Japan delivering mail to the carriers from to and from the Philippines and Da Nang and Saigon until 1965, and that ended my Navy career, and it was a great experience. I learned a lot about everything that had to do with flying, and I'm so thankful for the concentration and training and supervision that they gave me. The lure of Buzz Sawyer and Steve Canyon drew me to the Indochina War, and Air America was looking for people, and so I was, again, lucky enough to be in the right spot at the right time, and chose to go there, and I was there for 9 years. I flew, the smallest airplane was the Helio Courier, and next was the Pilatus Porter, then into the Caribou and the C-123, but perhaps the greatest lesson I had was the first few months I was there. I was a co-pilot in the C-46, which is the way I view it as a flying museum. It was a grand old airplane, and they're still around, you know.
Yes.
And I flew all over the Indochina Peninsula there, not much into Cambodia, but it was very interesting and trying times, and I had some excellent learning opportunities, and flew some great airplanes that were well maintained. So it was a fine experience to get my career launched.
Do you have any particular flight that stands out in your mind as being very exciting or the perfect flight?
Well, actually, it was after that that I got one of these particularly special experience, and I was flying a DC-8 out of Saudi Arabia. And the nice thing about that airplane was that while it was old and we were using airplanes that had been used by an airline that was no longer in business, it took me to places I really wanted to go and had never been to before. So many places in Europe, all the way from nearly Eastern Europe, of course the curtain was up then, all the way out to Scotland. And it was just a grand experience to be able to go those places and fly into those, always a new airport, and you never know what's going to look like on the ground.
Did you have a favorite place?
I think I enjoyed London as much as everywhere else because of the ancient history and culture that's there, that's part of the American culture. I still like London more than many places.
Oh, sure. London is wonderful. I enjoy it myself. So currently you are volunteering with several aviation organizations in Anchorage and you're looking for a career change. How has the industry changed from when you started?
When I started flying?
Yes.
Oh, that's a long time, isn't it? Yes, it has changed immensely, but the greatest swing has been toward more deliberate address of safety. While my first flying experience was in the Navy, and safety was always a factor, because in spite of the higher incidence of mishaps in the service, they're always concerned about not losing people, and airplanes as well, of course. But today, at the cost of airplanes and the dearness of the money, it's even more important from an economic standpoint, but no less important from the standpoint of losing human lives. And I enjoyed the presence of safety coming into a more formal activity with aviation, and that's what we see today with SMS and risk management and factors and all those deliberate things. I just am inclined to make sure we guard against getting wound up in the process and forget about what we're doing. That's always a hazard in aviation, and I've worked with that over years in various working organizations to make sure that we keep our eye on the ball, but we always know we need to be safe. And so that's what we do. We try to get the job done safely. Have to do them both.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much. We're very fortunate to have advice and counsel from professionals like you that have lived and learned and can pass along that knowledge. Thanks for your time and sharing your stories, and we will look forward to seeing you on our next program.
Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching Hangar Flying. Please tune in to our next show when we talk with Mr. Thurston about some of his ideas and policies that have developed from his years of experience. And he's got experience from both sides of the fence as a pilot and in management. Until next time, fly safely.
Welcome back. Well, this is the sea ice analysis that was done this afternoon. Still in closer to the central and eastern Arctic coastal areas, and then kind of angling back to the northwest. And over the next couple of days, this area of sea ice should be gone by Sunday afternoon. And for the next 4 or 5 days, just looking for a minimal retreat here of the ice edge for the areas, say, west of Barrow, and for the eastern areas here, eastern coast and the Beaufort Sea, looking for really not much change at all over the next 4 or 5 days. And for the coastal forecast here, northwesterlies 15 to 20 knots for the north coast, more north to northeast down along the central and south coast tomorrow afternoon, but only at about 15 knots. Northwesterlies at 15 for the central and southern inside waters, and then variable becoming south 15 for northern Lynn Canal with seas at about 3 feet. And for the outlook on Sunday, southerlies up to 20 knots here for the north coast, and then westerlies turning northwest 15 knots for the central and south coast with seas only running 3 to 4 feet out there. Kind of a light variable wind condition here from southeast at 10 knots for Clarence Strait to northwest at 15 knots there for Stevens Passage. But northern Lynn Canal, small craft advisories as those southerly winds increase to 25 knots and seas build to 5 feet. And for Prince William Sound, the North Gulf Coast, and the Barren Islands, light variable winds in the forecast for tomorrow, all at about 10 knots with seas 2 to 4 feet. Southerlies at 15 knots for Cook Inlet. Southwest there for Kamishak Bay, on down through Shelikof Strait. Westerlies at 15 for the east side of Kodiak Island with 4-foot seas. And for Sunday, small craft advisories here for Kodiak Island. Those southwesterlies in Shelikof Strait forecast to blow at about 30 knots with 7-foot seas. Southerly winds, Kamishak Bay and Cook Inlet, 15 knots, a little lighter for northern Cook Inlet. And then small craft advisories for the North Gulf Coast. Southerlies at 25 knots in the forecast for that area. East winds up to 20 knots for Prince William Sound. Lighter southerlies and southwesterlies back to the west. And for Bristol Bay, south at 10 knots tomorrow, southwest 15 here on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula. But there are small craft advisories here from Castle Cape down to Cape Sarachev on the Pacific side of the peninsula. And then the outlook for Sunday, small craft advisories now on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula from Cape Sarachev all the way up in across Bristol Bay, and otherwise westerlies at 20 knots here from Sitkinak to the Cape Sarachev on the south side. And for the outlook for Saturday, or the forecast for tomorrow, here small craft advisories for the central and eastern Aleutians, southwest 25 knots, all areas, seas running 6 to 9 feet, and northeast winds here for the far western marine zone out there at about 20 knots. And the outlook for Sunday, no change out here to the west. Lighter southwest winds for the central Aleutians down to 15 knots, and then 20 to 25 knot west-southwest winds for the Fox Islands with 7 to 8 foot seas. And for the southwest coast, we've got east to southeast winds 10 to 15 knots, northeast 15 knots here for the northern Bering Sea, back around to the southwest for the Pribilofs. And for Sunday, light variable winds here over the northern Bering Sea, otherwise north to northwest 20 knots for the southwest coast and St. Lawrence Island. And up along the Arctic coast, kind of a lot variable wind direction here, but the speed's pretty uniform at about 15 knots from the south over toward Kaktovik, westerlies on the central eastern coast, and then the central coast here southeast at 15, back around to the southwest with westerlies. And then for Sunday, about that same direction, northeast though at 10 knots, pretty light winds for the western coast, only southerlies at about 15 knots for the central coast, west winds at 15 for the western coast, and from Wales up to Cape Thompson, northwest at 15. And for tonight, narrow band of light rain here progressing eastward, slowly to the south across Norton Sound, the Seward Peninsula, up across the Kobuk Valley into the Central Brooks Range, and then more rain pushing into the eastern Aleutians and Alaska Peninsula, and less in the way of shower activity here over the southern southeast coast as that low pulls off to the south. And that continues tomorrow, partly sunny skies with a few isolated showers for the Panhandle. Rain in Bristol Bay, rain for the Alaska Peninsula, narrow band of rain here up over the northern interior with showers following in behind. And then for Sunday, the moisture with this front combines with the moisture from that one rolling in from Bristol Bay, so rain likely for south central Alaska, definitely wet along the North Gulf Coast. Have a great evening.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.